Assalamu alaikum, Sister Alia. Thank you so much for your time. So we're going to jump right in. And you used to work with CARE. Can you tell us a little bit about your work with CARE?
Sure. So I was the executive director for the Dallas Fort Worth chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations. And for those people who don't know, it's a civil rights and advocacy organization, and we focus primarily on dealing with issues of discrimination that have taken place against the Muslim community. But we focused also on people who were not part of the Muslim community. We had people come to us from a variety of backgrounds who deal with issues, and then a lot of coalition building and intersectional work, especially dealing with racism and racial justice work. And I was the executive director for about 3.5 years, so we built it up from almost complete dormancy. And in those 3.5 years, we got it to a really solid position of operating fully within the Muslim community and addressing this need.
That's awesome. And I think we'll end with your work since you've left CARE. But a couple of things in the last few months and last few years, right? So one thing that really blew up on social media was the situation in the airports due to the Trump ban and so on earlier this year, so like January, February, March. And right. So we were watching you, Amr Sulaiman, and others in the DFW area in the airport protesting and rioting and so on. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So I'll kind of give you a synopsis of how it was from my perspective, like how it all went down. Basically, I got a phone call that day from a friend, a community member who wanted to deal with the situation. Their friend's parents were basically detained, and they didn't know what to do. They were like, "Is this because of the travel ban? Is this because of what Trump had done on Friday?" So they contacted me Saturday morning, and they said they're stuck in there. We think it's because of the ban, and so I went there to help with a singular incident. Once I got to the airport to respond to this particular case, there were multiple family members there, and so eventually we had about 9 detainees that were there for specifically the man who were detained from Saturday morning until late Sunday afternoon. And in the process of doing this work, meeting with them, I started calling attorneys. I immediately started calling the media because that this is a situation that is going to garner a lot of attention. But we needed to kind of direct the narrative so that it was truthful and it wasn't controlled by the media. It was controlled by the people on the ground, and that they were the ones determining what was happening. So that was super essential that we kind of got in front of that and tried to maintain some cohesive messaging that was around that. So once that started kind of getting a roll, I did some initial tweets, some initial Facebook videos, things like that about what was happening. People started to realize what was going on, and they organically started coming to the airport. It was
amazing.
Mashallah, it was amazing.
It was, yeah.
So 10 people turned into 30 people, right?
Yeah.
And I had this interfaith group of leaders, Sheikh Omar being on that group of people, that we had become friends, we had become coalition partners, and I said, guys, here's what's going on. And so keeping them informed, and they were saying, let us know what you need. And at one point I said, you guys have got to come. We've got to get people out here. There's people organically showing up, but we need to, kind of make this as, this cohesive effort together, right, to get people to the airport. And of course, Sheikh Omar puts like a tweet out. It's worth like 1,000 of everything.
Sure. I was thinking of going from Houston, but I just couldn't. It was during the semester. I had classes trying to graduate.
So he puts out, he sends the call that basically makes a huge difference. Yeah. Once he puts the call out, it was incredible. We had well over 1,000, 2,000 people that were there, and people just such goodwill. It was so positive. People were so excited, but they were there for a purpose, and it was to put pressure. So it worked really beautifully because we had coordinated. It was almost like a dance, mashallah, a coordinated dance. We had attorneys who were working in one section, and we had built this like really solid group of people, including people from the ACLU who are communicating with their national office, and then we had independent attorneys who were there taking case reports. They started filing, different types of legal actions to support the families, and they were working in one section. Then we had people who were working the social media section, like Brother Omer and Imam Nick and Sheikh Omar and all these people who were kind of working that section. And then we had people who were just there in power, standing in solidarity with each other. And that all worked together. And then once the airport realized what they had on their hands, the airport police came out, and then they started working with us to try and help, do this peacefully, and that's what we wanted. We didn't want something that was negative, that endangered people's lives, and it was such a positive atmosphere, but it was very purposeful, mashallah. So then behind the scenes, what was happening was, because we had been there from the beginning, Kara had been there, alhamdulillah, from the beginning, working with people, and I had made some relationships months and months in advance with people at the DFW airport. They had started opening lines of communication, and I was able to get in touch with the CBP director, who started communicating with me and realized they had someone they could partner with, that we were principled, that we were working very ethically, and we weren't there to try and smear them. We were trying to get the people out. That's what we were there for, bottom line, and they understood. And they were in a very complex situation as well. And so it played out very dramatically, where we had the family members. At one point I said, they had kind of stopped communicating with me because they were hunkering down trying to play volleyball, basically, with the president of the United States, who's taking these rash actions and trying to implement. And then you have this stay that ACLU was able to get into place, and so they're trying to figure out what's their role in all of this and how do they follow the law, because that's what their job is. They are law enforcement. CBP is law enforcement at the border, so they've got this huge struggle, but they stopped communicating. And I said, okay, we've got to take this to the human element, the human aspect, and I knew what it was going to come down to. So I started recording on my cell phone the family members of the detainees, right? And I said, I need you to plead with the people at CBP and with law enforcement that we need these people released, and that, you're desperate, et cetera, et cetera. And then, and only then, is when they opened communication up again. And they told me at that point that they were willing to play ball, that they were working on a short-term action to try and get these people released, and they were only willing to work with us, and they didn't want any more attorneys contacting them. So we kind of had to do some damage control to try and facilitate that opening. And then the next day, and this was going into like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And then the next day, we were back there at 8 o'clock in the morning and started the plans. And it was a very clandestine, removal. The CBP didn't want the family members who were detained. They didn't want them released in front of everybody. They were afraid that would cause too much chaos, and there could, not violence, but it could be so much chaos that people could be harmed, because it was a very dramatic scenario that was unfolding. And so we had basically SUVs, unmarked SUVs that we had to wait for and follow, and they took them to the care offices, and then we had to notify the family members. So we all went off site to do the release of the family members.
Wow.
But it was one of the most, how do I say this? One of the most gratifying moments of my position with CARE DFW, because we actually, you could have immediate tangible results from the
which doesn't always happen.
And it was really fantastic to see that happen. Of course, we've had to deal with everything since, with what the president has, dealt to the entire country.
Can I ask you
that, at least in that moment, was beautiful.
For sure. Can I ask you this? You said 90 detainees. Do you know their nationalities by any chance? I know it's been a while, but if you can remember.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head in detail, but we had people from Iran.
Okay.
We had people from, I believe, Sudan.
Okay.
We had people from Syria.
Okay.
Those three for sure.
All Muslims.
Off the top of my head.
All 9 are Muslims, right?
All of them are.
All of them are Muslims. My favorite yell or protest or slogan from that time at the airport was "You go pray, we'll stay." One of the things that was yelled is "You go pray, we stay," and then the sight of it's the, what is it called? Where the luggage come down.
Yeah, and when
Oh, they're called. But anyway, that area of the airport where all the luggage, and that place was full with people praying. So that was pretty cool. Okay, your time since since you've left, it's been a few months, I guess.
Yeah.
Pretty much this summer, and so that was kind of the highlight, and the end of your work with care was the travel ban and situation at the airport was pretty much the last chapter of your work with care. So since then, what does life look like so far? Your activism involvement.
Well, when you're operating at that fast of a pace, you've got to take time to recuperate from what it is that you're doing. It was a conscious decision to step down. We had gotten to a really good spot, and I thought it was important for care to transition into a new space with new blood and all that kind of good stuff. So, once I departed, it was time for me to do some reflection, some processing. And I was very particular about leaving before Ramadan started because I had never had the opportunity to be jobless without, during Ramadan, and that was super important to me that I would have that time to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be available to, partake in any of the reflections and blessings He was going to bestow and gift upon me. And so I was really looking forward to that. And of course, it turned out to be simply amazing, and I encourage everybody, if they have that opportunity, to take it and run with it and let that be an opportunity for healing, for tazkiyah, for khalwa with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's so essential that we take that time. So that's what I focused on, and focused on restoring health and balance, because it was, it was a very impactful journey, even 3.5 years, and I really truly applaud my co-care directors and staff members and volunteers for that matter, because the ones that are still going how they do it, it still amazes me. And it wasn't so much the work that it overwhelms you, it's what, the relationships that you have to work through, because it's a very high tense environment. But I miss the work a great deal, particularly with care, but I'm still doing that work in my own capacity. But I wanted to focus more on some personal long-term projects that I have been building with regards to my background, which is communications. And I wanted to focus more strategically on those. So I'm doing work in that area around storytelling, around communication, and then maintaining the whole coalition building thing. So my husband and I both want to get into documentary filmmaking and storytelling. So we're really excited about some opportunities, but not ready to release all the details.
Sure, no, I understand.
Communications and storytelling is where I'm focused on most.
Awesome. So we come to maybe a final question. So this particular course that we're creating, this online course, is on Islamophobia and civil rights, etc., basically the political climate. The future courses are going to be on other topics, atheism, feminism, etc., other issues that are relevant to the youth. But one of the underlying themes is the youth, right? So they're our audience. So our final question is, what is your message to the youth?
My message to the youth is that there is a plethora of opportunities for you to engage and support the Muslim community and the community at large through your efforts. And it doesn't have to be one singular path that you take. You don't have to give up. If you want to be a physician, go be a physician. That doesn't mean that you don't have an opportunity to give back to the community in some way. That there's such a huge opening for social services, for engagement in civil rights, to deal with the issues that the Muslim community face, like Islamophobia, like civil rights, etc., from very unique perspectives, whether it's storytelling, whether it's media engagement, whether it's law, whether it's refugee work, whether it's general relief work. I want the youth to understand there is no limit on what they can contribute, what they can come up with, and to do it fi sabilillah. I can't stress this enough for all the youth out there. We have this celebrity culture, we have this me, look at me culture that has developed for a variety of reasons and avenues. You have to bring it back to the purpose of being here to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and letting Him use you as a tool, as opposed to your intention of trying to glorify yourself or your actions. If you do it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will bless you and guide you in that path of doing those righteous works, because your intention is going to be pure. So there's no limit and make sure you do it peaceably and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will still facilitate all the good, inshallah, and through you, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you successful.
Thank you so much for the advice, but I just remember that I actually forgot a really critical question. So if you have the time and if you don't mind, we watched a documentary about basically hate groups or white supremacists, etc., neo-Nazis and so on in the North Texas area, like the DFW greater area. And one of them included you and Omar Suleiman, and you were speaking to a guy who was, very extreme in his views. And I'll let you, fill in the details. If you want to share with us the environment in that area, the climate, what people can do about it, your success story with this gentleman, speaking to him about refugees in Syria and etc. and Muslims.
I think it's important. Growing up in Texas, I was born and raised in Fort Worth, and I think it's important for people to understand that the vast majority of people don't wake up one day and say, "Oh, I want to, be against anybody, much less Muslims." Most of this, and this is what my experience has been, most of it is driven by two things. Fear and ignorance are so powerfully incapacitating that it drives oftentimes how people react in negative ways, right? And so when you appeal to somebody's humanity, when you appeal to the goodness that is within 99.99% of humanity, you appeal to the goodness within them, that can break down so many barriers. But at the same time, there are people, even if they have goodness within them, they operate on the extremes, right? They operate on, very, very far end of the spectrum. And sometimes Muslims, out of the goodness of their heart, they spend time spinning their wheels trying to talk to, these extremists. It's important to find those people that are closer to the center, but still connected to the problematic, positioning on either end. Deal with the people closer to the middle that may be able to have a domino effect towards the outer areas instead of you spinning your wheels. And that was kind of the case with this individual. He had goodness within him, and he had a desire to try and really understand. He expressed that desire, but he was so entrenched and affiliated with people who were completely set in their ways that he had not been able to break out of it until an olive branch had been extended. And because of that particular documentary with BBC, the producers of that particular documentary and the people that were on the ground, the director and everybody, really made an effort to find those voices and connect them to see what would happen when they met, balanced individuals who were willing to engage in a conversation. But he was a very particular person who was, handpicked to have that conversation. It wasn't just that we spoke with anybody within that group of people.
True.
There was a very particular individual, and it's hard to find those, but if you look for them, those opportunities will present themselves.
Awesome. Sister Alia, thank you so much for your time. This was great.
Not at all. It was my
Salem.
pleasure.